Welcome to another episode of moTV, where we interview people, we have fun, we talk about storytelling, speaking, and all those things combined. Today, we have got a fantastic guest, Lenny Ravich. We're going to find out how we met. We're going to find out everything about him. He's been an actor off Broadway. He was a high school teacher. He was a Gestalt therapist. Yes, we're going to find out what that actually means. He's a humorist, a speaker trainer, a trainer speaker, or a speaker trainer. And we're going to find out how all of those things fit together in what he's doing today, these days. And especially because we called this How Storytelling Bought Me a House, a Car, and 2 stents. And yes, we're going to find out about that. Now, normally we have these shows in the evening, but we switched. So I usually would have my bourbon, but this isn't bourbon because it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon for me. And we switched over to this time to make it more accessible. People on the West Coast, people on the East Coast, and people in Israel like Lenny Ravich. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Mr. Ravich, welcome to moTV.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so very happy to be here with you, Michelle. Thank you for the invitation.
Well, you're absolutely welcome. And you know what? Before we start anything, I want to thank you for joining community.momondays.com. I know we had to make sure we put the period between community and momondays, but you joined. You're an active member. This is so cool. Are you having a good time in there?
Yeah, very much, very much. I'm enjoying meeting the people and sharing things. It's great. I just have to work on it because I'm not very technically inclined, so I have to finish my
That's
membership.
Okay. We share the screen. We show you where to click, and it's fun. You're doing great. Now, Lenny, people want to find out about you. This show is about you. Okay. But so and we started off with this little bio profile. You're a humorist. You're an actor. You're a Gestalt. You were a director of the Gestalt Institute. Where? In Israel, right?
In Tel Aviv, Israel. Yeah.
I know where that is. That is. I was there, and that's where you and I met. We're going to talk about that. But you know what? The theme for this month in community.momondays.com, it's all about the craft of comedy in storytelling, humor, laughter. So let me start with this question. Lenny, why be funny?
Well, there are many reasons. One is be funny, make money.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah,
last month we did a whole workshop on coming up with proverbs. Be funny, make
I
money.
learned that from you,
I
from
like
your
it.
workshop.
Yeah.
First of all, people want an experience. They just don't want someone up there saying things and showing a PowerPoint. They want to have an experience. Laughter, humor, comedy is an experience. And if you're making them laugh, not even laugh, just smile, just getting people to look up at you and get interested and smile, that means you're engaging them. If you're engaging them, they're not on their text, writing text. They're not somewhere else like daydreaming. This? So humor is a way to engage people and get them to listen and to experience. People will forget what you say. People will forget what you do, but people will never forget how you made them feel. That's from Maya Angelou. That's not my quote. That's hers.
Yes, I know it. I was just on my text, and I lost half of what you said. No, I'm teasing you. Yes.
Don't be funnier than me. I'm your guest.
No. Now so you're actually speaking as a presenter, storyteller, speaker. Why be funny? But I also know that humor, laughter, comedy is not just a big part of how you do your profession, but it's a big part of how you run your life, how you live.
Yeah, well, laughter and humor as a way of life, it's an attitude. It's actually, if you want to get down to it, it's a commitment. If you make that commitment every day, that today is going to be great, I'm going to have some fun. I'm going to find some funny things along the way. And one of the funny things that happened to me was that I had heart surgery. How could having heart surgery be uh, a great day? But that was a commitment. And once I made that commitment, things began to fall in place. It's amazing how the cosmos listens to us once we make that commitment. Today is going to be a great day. Today is going to be fun. Today is going to be funny. So I went in for my heart surgery, and I meet my cardiologist for the very first time. And he looks at me. He says, Lenny Ravich. I said, how do you know me? He said, you might not remember, but back in the 70s, you were my high school teacher.
Oh,
And I'm
oh,
saying to myself,
it's payback time.
yeah, things get great because I think to myself, was I nice to this guy?
Yeah.
We're going into the operating room. And I always tell teachers, be nice to your students because you never know. You have to appear in court. And who's the judge, that little snot-nosed Hannah from the 8th grade, you never know. So I asked him, I said, did I give you a good grade? He said, Lenny, we enjoyed your lessons so much. We never learned anything, but we loved your lessons. And then I get wheeled into the operating room, and this is what happened. I had never had this happen to me before. He puts a catheter into my artery, and it has a camera on it, and I can see my heart on the screen. And I see he's looking at it, and he's going like this. And I said, what's the matter? He said, you're blocked. I said, that's nothing new. My wife tells me that every day. And he says, don't make me laugh. I'm in your heart. He said, look, I'm going to have to give you 2 stents, not 1. This is the story about the 2 stents. So I said, okay. So he said, yeah, but, the regular stents that you don't pay for, because this is, they could cause some kind of a poisoning or something that happens once in a while. And he starts looking around. He said, but suddenly he becomes a salesman. And he says, but now, today, special price, 2 stents that will not cause any problems or infections, $5,000. And this is the truth. We're having fun. He's in my heart, and he brings a contract over to me. Now, I made a commitment in the morning before I came that this is going to be a fun day. So he says, sign the contract. I don't know if this happens in Canada where you are, but in Israel, they bring you a contract if you want to buy these special stents only today, half off, $5,000. So I take the pen and I don't sign. He said, why aren't you signing? I said, wait, don't push me. I'm thinking. He said, what are you thinking about? I said, well, you sew me back up. Send me home. I'll probably be dead within 6 to 9 months. Is that right? He said, yeah. I said, but if you put those 2 stents in that you said cost $5,000, and God forbid I live, I got to pay you $5,000, and that's going to kill me. He broke up. Don't make me laugh, Ravich. I'm in your heart. Anyway, as you can see, I took the 2 stents. Everything was fine. He looks up at the screen and he says, look at the blood flowing like a 17-year-old. I said, thanks, Doc. Now I can go home and die from something else. And that's the story of the 2 stents. And how you make a commitment. Every day it's a commitment. Today is going to be great. Today is going to be funny. Today is going to be optimistic. Today is going to be full of laughter, love, and joy. Those are the commitments you got to make if you want to have it. That's humor. It's a commitment. It's an attitude. Are you still there?
I had this vision as you were talking. It's like a commitment. You got to make this every day. It's like, all right, I'm going to put a big poster on the wall in front of my bed so that the first thing I wake up to is like, your commitment for today, be funny.
Right. Be funny, make money.
And make money. I love it. So we met, oh God, it was a long time ago now. 10 years, 15
something
years,
like that.
12
It was
years.
amazing. It was amazing. Can I tell how we? Do you want me to tell how we did that? Then how that happened? That was also magic,
Well,
by the
thank
way.
you. Well, okay, yeah. You told me a little bit about the story. In fact, you piqued my interest, my curiosity, because you said that meeting me was actually a really pivotal. I am a professional speaker. I'll get this word out. A,
Pillowable. Have some more
a
bourbon.
pivot.
Yeah.
Stop it! You're making
Pillowable.
me laugh. I'm a marble. Pivotal experience, a moment in your life. You said that to
Yeah.
me.
Well, I'll tell you. Before I met you, I was telling funny stories, and I was getting invitations. And in Israel, we have a thing called house clubs, where people get together on a Friday. They bring food and they invite a lecturer to come in. And I told funny stories, and people would invite me. In those days, back in the '90s, there wasn't that much internet, so it had to go word of mouth. People were talking about me, and I was getting invitations, and it was all well and good until one day somebody came to me and asked me for my card, and I gave it to him. It was from a big corporation, IBM, or I think it was some big bank or something, and he insisted that I have a message along with my funny stories. Not just tell funny stories, but have a message. Like magic, Shahar Perlman,
Yeah,
a friend of
Shachar
yours and
Perlman is the one
mine,
who invited me to Israel. Yeah.
right? Uh, he invited Avi Liran, my partner from Singapore, to come to your workshop, and we came. And what I got out of that was something I don't remember exactly the words you used, but the 2 day workshop, I think it was 2 days.
Yeah.
uh, what is your core message? And that blew me away because I had to take the stories that I was telling, the funny stories, and find out what the core message of that story is. What do I leave the people? And then you said something about how do you want people to feel, or what do you want them to do as a result of having heard you? Something like that. You sent me home with some kind of homework
I
about.
remember sending you, like, honestly, I do not remember what that was, but it sounds like one of my workshops. So it
Well, you,
must have been true.
yeah, because you sent me home with some homework, and you said something about what activity do you want these people to do in their lives? How do you want to change their lives for them to play forward as a result of having heard you? And so all my stories then suddenly became funny, but they also had a message in them for people to think about, like the one that I gave you about the commitment. The story about the STENTS. Make a commitment every day, how you want this day to be. You decide. And suddenly everything changed. From your workshop, I was getting invitations. Avi Liran invited me to Singapore, from there to Hong Kong. We did the workshops together, 2 day workshops at the Hong Kong Hockey Club, and we went to Bangkok together, and we it was just an amazing experience. Also Russia, and to Odessa, and we were just having the greatest time. And I want to thank you very much, Michelle, because of your workshop. I got it, just was a click, and that was like magic. They always say that when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And my God, I was ready for you, and you were my teacher, and thank you for that.
Well, I don't think I ever hit you up for a testimonial, but that sounded pretty good.
Okay,
I'm
you got
expecting
it.
a testimonial from you in my email after this show. So seriously, thank you for that. I remember what I was doing at the time. I still do it. It's what you call the essential message,
Right,
and
right.
it's something that I do with individuals. I do that with corporations, and really help them drill down to their core message. And but I didn't know. Lenny, I honestly did not know that it had that big an impact on you.
Yeah,
I thought
yeah,
you were already a globe trotting speaker.
yeah.
You
Well,
know,
a globe-trotting speaker without a core message, the one that you taught us to, how did you call it? Core
the
message?
essential message, yeah.
Essential message, yeah. And I was
And
in touch
now,
with
of
you
course, I
several times
build
after
that.
that.
Yeah, So that's and in fact, I've got a clip of you speaking. I think it was in Sweden, sharing a
No,
story. No,
I think it was
Switzerland.
in Switzerland.
Switzerland, right? You were in
Yeah,
Switzerland,
yeah.
speaking
Geneva.
in Geneva. That's in
Yeah,
Switzerland, and you were speaking to, I believe, a group of educators.
right.
And
And
you know what? I'm going to play this clip for people so that they could hear this story themselves. Now, we
okay.
pick up the story just when you were talking about how you got a gig, your dream job as a television newscaster announcer.
Yeah,
That's where we
right.
pick up the story, and it goes like this. Watch this.
In the background, da 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 da, and with that very serious broadcasting voice, I looked into the camera and I said, "Good evening, and here is the news, read to you by Leonard Ravich, Washington." I gave the news, it was perfect. I had my dream job. I went into my office, my phone is ringing. I pick up the phone, somebody wants to speak to Leonard Garbage. I put the phone down, picked it up again, somebody called to speak to Leonard Rubbish. My secretary came in with a note saying someone is looking for Leonard Ravage, R-A-V-A-G-E. I looked up the word, it means to rape and pillage, and I'm absolutely innocent of any wrongdoing. Now I'm panicky, I'm taking myself seriously. I've got to think of an alternative. I got to go on the air in another 15 minutes. I'll change my name. I'll keep the Leonard, but I got to throw out the garbage. Leonard was starting with an R, something with an R like Leonard Raymond. I'll be Leonard Raymond. So I went to all my colleagues. I said, I'm no longer Leonard Ravich. I'm Leonard Raymond. And they all looked up and said, thank God. I got in front of the camera, 9 o'clock exactly. And Gretchen gives me the cue. And I hear the music in the background. Da, 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 da. And I looked at the camera, and it went exactly like this. Good evening. And here is the news, read to you by Leonard here is the news read to you by Leonard I became the first radio and television announcer in the history of the United States to forget his name during a live broadcast. But you have to be spontaneous because it's airtime and it costs a lot of money. So I looked at the camera and with great confidence I said, I forgot my name, but here's the news. Washington. Now I hear you laughing, and I see you laughing, and I've got to ask you a question. Are you laughing at me, or are you laughing with me? With me. I laugh at myself, you laugh with me. When we laugh together, it brings us closer together. This is called intimacy. My interpretation of intimacy is into-me-see. Intimacy. When you're strong enough and courageous enough to show your true emotions and your vulnerabilities, people want to be closer to you. Isn't that a paradox? We spend our whole lives trying to be perfect, and all people really want is our humanity.
Yes.
Yeah.
All people really want is our humanity.
And that's the takeaway I got from your workshop, because I was delivering this as a stand-up, going to homes and performing. And after your workshop, I got that essential message. What is really the message here? If I can make fun of myself, I'm showing who I am and not afraid to show my vulnerability, and that's my humanity. That's it. People want our humanity, not our perfection.
Is beautiful, and so thank you. I don't really think I could take credit for it, but I will. Thank you.
Well, try.
Yeah. Now you've spoken. So you've spoken in Switzerland. You said you had multiple gigs in Asia.
Yeah.
I have to tell you that Avi has become a friend of mine as well. He's a wonderful guy, and
You ought to have him on sometime. Yeah.
Yeah. No, we will. Because he's also all about joy. And he's got a great story about a lesson that his mother taught him, which I remember from the workshop.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's got some great story. He was also on TED Talks
Yeah.
last year, and we're waiting for the video to come out in December. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And he's also does corporate training. So here's a like you're you've done so much: high school teaching, drama teacher, actor, Gestalt therapist, and
Yeah.
director of the Gestalt Institute in Israel, um, humorist, corporate trainer. I can you identify, like, when were you always funny, like, or did you pick it up on the way?
I got a lot of attention at school when I was in. My father used to tell me jokes when I was in second grade to tell my teacher. And I came to my second grade teacher and I used to tell her, and I said, Miss Mayo, what is it, Leonard? You know how to make peroxide? No, Leonard, I don't know how to make peroxide. Well, you take a little peroxide and you mix it with a little peroxide and you got peroxide. And so I got a hug. I mean, she hugged me and she brought me in front of the other teachers. She says, tell them, you know. So it got me a lot of attention. And that was a way of actually surviving because humor gave me the ability to take, I'll give you an example of right now. We're in COVID and I'm busy trying to find something funny about it. And
There was a cat. The cat.
There's a cat. That's something funny. And the first thing I came up with is right now we're in lockdown. We're in lockdown, and we get a notice from the government: don't do anything, don't go anywhere. And like I'm 84 years old, and so I'm like, okay, you know, I can handle that. And you know, things like my wife comes to me, my God, we're at the age where vulnerable people with COVID-19 at our age die. So I'm like, bye. You know, you come up with things just to make life bearable. People are getting depressed. People are taking drugs, drinking, and the humor. You just look for the humor, and it's a survival mechanism. And when you get on stage and you can teach people how to do this, how to take the hardest, toughest things in your life, like heart surgery or forgetting your name on a live broadcast, and they see that you're taking life lightly and that you're optimistic. By the way, I wrote a book that I'd like to share with you.
Well, wait. I want to ask you about that book, and you've given me the perfect segue because you're talking about Everlasting Optimism, which is available on Kindle and
it's on
wherever you buy your books.
Yeah.
And you were just talking about inner strength.
This is a tremendous strength. I think
chapter 4. I wrote this down. How you gain inner strength. Chapter 4.
Yeah. Inner strength from humor. It is definitely when I read Viktor Frankl, and you know what he went through in the Holocaust and the death camps, and he talks about using humor as a way to transcend the reality. I mean, the reality is horrible, and he says, I used humor, I joked about things, and he actually writes jokes in the death camps to keep himself healthy, stronger, and he even lived a long life, and he gave himself meaning. That was the name of his book, Man's Search for Meaning.
I've read that book. It's a really, really profound book.
I took a lot of stuff from him and wrote it in my book, Everlasting Optimism. Yeah, it's really a way to survive, and it's also very healthy. Having a sense of humor keeps you from getting ill. I mean, Dr. Siegel, his name was Bernie Siegel, said people who have humor are usually happier, and they very rarely get sick. He said that happy people just rarely get sick. I mean, they just are protected in a way because your stress can really bring you down and lower your ability to fight off sicknesses.
Yeah. So I gotta tell you this, Lenny. Now I don't know if I don't think you well, you might know that my mother was a Holocaust survivor as well.
Oh,
Um, and so she, when she was late in life and in the hospital, she diagnosed with a terminal illness, and we were at the I was with her every day, just sitting with her, standing, talking with her. And I remember seeing something or hearing something on the radio, not seeing something on the hearing something on the radio, uh, uh, about how, have simple conversations with your parents, especially, when they're getting close to the end, and because you'll never have this chance again. And one of the questions that they suggested was, what was the funniest thing that ever happened to you? So I said, oh,
right.
you know what? We ran out of the usual things to say about how's the food today and how was your care and all that. So I said, okay, Ruth, I called my mother Ruth, and I said, what's the funniest thing that ever happened to you? And she thinks about it, and she kind of gets up in her hospital bed, and she says, well, because she was from my mother's French, she had a French accent, well, we were at the camps. And
We
I'm
were at
thinking,
the
camps. And
yeah.
I'm thinking, now I know this isn't like the Y Country camp. She was in Auschwitz. And I said, I asked you what's the funniest thing that ever happened to you, and you're going to tell me a story about Auschwitz? And I don't say anything, but she sees the gears turning in my mind. And she goes, yes, we were at the camps. Now, I'll save the story for another. In fact, I'm doing a workshop on comedy for speakers. Maybe I'll share it. But I walked away from that thinking, wow. If my mother could tell a story about Auschwitz and make it funny, then there is no topic that is out of bounds.
Right. Nothing is off the off limits. Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's an amazing story. You say to your mother, "What's the funniest thing that ever happened to you?" She says, "Well, I was once in a death camp."
Well, right. and I believe, like you say, about Viktor Frankl, I think that her attitude is, there's no rhyme or reason why some people perished and some people survived, or not health-wise, not physical reason. But it's all about attitude and mentality, and
Yeah. Yeah. Even Dr. John, I think it was his name, Dyer, John Dyer. He said this one simple sentence. He said, "Attitude is everything. So pick a good one."
Yeah. So we heard how. Wait a minute. Yeah, storytelling, House of Car. Definitely, it's been storytelling and humor in storytelling. But most people, it's interesting. Most people go at it the other way around. They have a topic that they're hired for, if they're a speaker or storyteller, and then they have to figure out how to bring comedy into it, bring a bit of levity to it. You went the other way around. You were
Yeah.
already doing the comedy, but you had to figure out, how do I bring message into it?
Yeah. Yeah. Many people go that way. I've known some comics who are now speakers. The old saying, "What is the difference between a comic and a speaker?" And the answer is about $15,000.
Yeah.
Steve Rizzo is a great example of that. He was doing stand-up comedy for years, and he decided to become a speaker. And you listen to him, and he has the same journey that I had of finding out the core message, or how did you call it, the
essential message. Yeah.
essential message of what you want, and taking his comedy and using that to get his message across. Absolutely, I know several people who have gone that route.
Yeah. Um, Yeah, what's really hard, what I've noticed, and I've done stand up as well, but I did stand up more like, for me, I did it for cross training. How do I become a better speaker? Well, I'm gonna try this, just like I try improv, just try, drama, acting, all kinds of things to make myself a better speaker, better on stage. But what I discovered is that the stand up comedy and the craft of stand up comedy is by far the most exacting of all the performance arts.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You
Because
know,
whether you put a half beat or a whole beat of a pause could make the entire difference in whether people find it funny or not. And where
absolutely.
you put not just the punch line, but the punch word. And the other thing I discovered is that all of those kinds of skills, now obviously not everything in stand-up comedy, but a surprising amount of stand-up comedy is directly translatable to dramatic performances as well.
Hmm. Hmm.
So how you deliver your message
Hmm.
and how you phrase your message is
Hmm.
it requires the same kind of craft as how you build a joke. Would you agree with that? That's what I
I
found.
agree with that. As a matter of fact, the timing, sometimes it takes you months or years in front of audiences to get it exactly right. What exactly do they laugh at? Like, for instance, I had a sentence that my father once said. I don't know where he got it from, but he said, "Live every day as if it's your last, because one day you'll be right." So I tell a story about my mother eating garlic every night before she went to bed. And then somebody from the audience said, "What about your father? How did he handle that?" And from that, I went into, from that on, you got the idea from the audience. I said, "My mother used to eat garlic every night before she went to bed. One night she forgot, and here I am." You see, you pick up something from the audience. It takes sometimes months or years to get exactly the right timing and the right words.
Yeah, I mean, when you're
And
great at something, it comes off as sounding and looking easy. But
oh,
you and I know that there's, it's that whole 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. There's a lot
oh,
of work and craft, and you got to keep at it,
yeah,
refine, try, test it out.
yeah. You have to keep trying it out. And there's a lot of sweat and blood in some of the one line. People like Seinfeld have said that he's worked night after night, day after day, changing one sentence to get it so that it feeds right into the audience, and he gets a laugh.
Yeah,
It is a very exact craft,
yeah.
or you could call
One
it.
of the funniest things that I've ever heard from a stand-up comic is, the definition of a stand-up comic is somebody who goes to gig after gig expecting a laugh.
That's funny.
Yeah, yeah.
That's funny. That's
And
funny. Yeah.
hope it's telling the same joke over and over again, hope, expecting a lot. Anyway, um, what would you say to someone who say, okay, I buy into this, I understand how humor, comedy, the craft of comedy will help me live my life better. I understand how it will help me make more money, be funny, make money. I understand how it will help me engage my audiences more. I mean, there's like the benefits are endless, right? What would you say to them to say, well, here's how you can start to, it's going to sound funny. Um, here's how you, here's how you could start to be a little funnier. Here's a serious way. Or, what would you say to them? What could they try? What should they do? How can they be funnier? Seriously.
Oh, seriously? Okay. Look, it's a, a path, and it's a long road, because when I first began to use humor, I used it as a way to deflect. Now, deflect means that I didn't want to share anybody's anger, so I would make a joke out of it. Or somebody got scared of something, rather than What happened was I was pushing people away from me, and I was making them very angry because I wasn't present. Because sometimes humor, if it's used in the wrong way, uh, puts a shield in front of you,
Mm.
and that's exactly what people don't want. They want you to be able to accept their fear, their anger, or their sadness, or their happiness, or whatever. And so I had a hard time in dealing with my ego. Now the ego is that's a whole subject, because if you don't get a laugh, or somebody gets up and walks out of your performance, or somebody looks at their watch, or starts texting, you have to work on that, because it's never about you. That's a whole different subject. But what I would tell these people is that humor is a way of life. You make it a way of life. You actually have this attitude that everything you see from now on, again, this is a commitment, is going to entertain you. So you sit in front of a TV and you're watching this terrible news. Everybody's, biting their fingernails, and you're looking at it and said, "This is really entertaining." You're not, you're not dismissing the fact that there are people being killed, or there's a fire in Los Angeles, but there is a certain amount of what it's called aesthetic distance. Every artist has to have this aesthetic distance, that you could take two places. One is you're there, and one is you're standing outside of it watching. That goes for yourself as well. You become a witness to your own, and you could even say to yourself, "I see that you're getting sucked into this and getting depressed. Is there some way you can get out, step back, and look at it?" As Charlie Chaplin says, that um, tragedy plus time equals comedy. You can distance yourself from it and find it entertaining. As a matter of fact, George Carlin, one of my great, great mentors, I mean, I never met him personally, but just watching him, made this one statement. He said, "People who fail to see life, everything in life, as entertainment are missing the point."
Mm.
Okay, now he was the most serious comic I've ever seen, but he was also the funniest comic I've ever seen. And many comics today are copying his sort of um, way or his attitude of bringing things across that are very serious, and at the same time finding them funny. I remember watching uh, who was it, the comic that talked about his heart attack.
You
Uh,
did.
yeah, me, yeah, right. Uh, Even today, you see comics like uh, when you get to be 84, you become like an old computer. Uh, uh, Louis C.K.
Oh yeah.
He talks about his children
Yeah.
and his life and his divorce, and Chris Rock.
Yeah.
His latest special was on his divorce and the pain he went through, but he takes this pain and he just turns it around and shows you that you can have a humorous attitude about everything.
Uh,
So so that
it's a
that
way,
is one
and
way.
it comes back to what you were saying earlier. It was a commitment to see the world as entertainment. Force yourself to see either the absurdity, the paradoxes, the irony. I get people to, we all have these what if scenarios in our head, right? We just imagine, well, what if that person really did slip on the banana peel? Wouldn't that be funny? And
Yeah.
and but we don't really pay attention to that. We say, no, that's not appropriate. And I say, no, no, no. Not only is it appropriate, but I want you to become more conscious of it. Give yourself permission to see all of those things. And so sound like we use different language, Lenny, but I think we're very much on the same page about this.
Yeah, yeah. What you're saying is the word appropriate is it's a in comedy there is nothing not appropriate. It because everything is on the table. It's like John Cleese once said, no one has the right not to be offended. And
Uh,
today, comics refuse to go to colleges because of people saying that offended me, that hurt my feelings, and their feelings become much more than even to this day. I was watching Ricky Gervais talk about how many tweets he gets because he talked about some subject that offended somebody like 3,000 miles away. He talked about rape or something.
well,
Well,
okay.
yeah, no, but
I
it
mean,
was it was he did it.
and so we talked about the similarities between comics and speaker trainers, and this is where one of the big differences is that as a comic, you're really testing the boundaries of
Right.
what those limits of appropriate are or are not, and as a speaker trainer, you really need to be careful to stay within it.
Very, very careful that
Yeah.
if you're a speaker, you cannot offend anyone.
So you gotta let all of that out because it's
Yeah.
great fodder for creativity and your jokes and all that stuff. You got to give yourself permission to do all that stuff, and then say, okay, but that joke I'm not going to tell.
Well, I actually talk to the people who invite me about what is appropriate and what is not. I might be invited to several religious uh, groups, and I hold a sticker. I have a sticker that says, "I won the sperm race."
Yeah,
It's a sticker that I give to people when they come up for my book. It says in Hebrew or in English, wherever I'm doing it, "I won the sperm race." And they will tell me, absolutely not.
uh,
And I would say, what about this subject? Absolutely not. Now, there's one subject that it's on the edge. And usually they say, yeah, that's okay. But I check. I don't do comedy when I'm doing, no holds barred in front of a religious group or a group of corporate. You have to be very careful.
yeah,
You don't use any words that can offend anybody. You don't talk about religion. You don't talk about politics, and you don't talk about sex.
yeah,
Ever those subjects.
yeah,
You want to get paid, keep it squeaky clean,
yeah,
get them to laugh. And at night, when you're doing your open mic, open the throttle,
yeah, and
let
get
it
all that
go.
stuff out and know where the limits are. So we're gonna wrap this up, Lenny. I want to thank you for being an incredibly insightful guest. I think our
Thank
viewers
you.
and our listeners got a lot out of this. Uh,
Thank you.
be funny, make money. Is there something that you want to leave people with in addition to that?
Yeah. I want to say, along with what we talked about commitment, that when somebody asks you a question, and they're going to ask you this question, you're going to get asked this question many times every day. People are going to ask you, how are you? And I want you to be prepared to say this: now is my best moment. And if they say, how can you say that? Your answer is, because there is no other moment. So take that with you. And I will ask you now, Michelle, how are you? And what is your answer?
Now
Now
is my
is my
best
best
moment
moment. How can you say that?
because there
Because there
is no
is
other
no
moment.
other.
I
Thank you.
remembered what you said.
Yes, yes. You're a good
I'm
student.
trying. I'm trying. Lenny, thank you very much. We're going to close this up. If people want to get in touch with you, they could go to lennyravich.com. Of course, that goes to your Hebrew website, and we're going to post it in the comments about where they could go and see your English page and find out about or you could just go to Amazon or where you buy your books and look for Everlasting Optimism. I remember
Everlasting
you. I know it's
optimism.
out of print, but I remember you from A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to Enlightenment, which
That was my first book. Yeah,
cracked me
yeah.
up. I loved it. Very
Thank you.
insightful. Thank you, Lenny.
Fischel, this was a joy. I love being with you and talking with you, and you're a great host. And thank you so much.
Thank you. That was another episode of moTV come back next month and you're going to find another. I know who it is, but I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you. He is amazing. He talks about, well, I'm not going to tell you. You're going to find out. If you want to find out, just log on to our, like our Facebook page at Mo Mondays. Go to momondays.com, or better yet, join our community at community.momondays.com. That's community.momondays.com. Thanks for tuning in.